Hey, Brett, how's it going, Mike?
Hello, long time no talk.
It's been forever.
Long 24 hours.
Dinner at the Chambers.
Oh, really?
Oh, baby.
Hey, Kinley!
Here we are. Oh, okay.
She knows how to use the mute button already.
Pretty impressive. We haven't seen you on stuff for a minute. How's it going, man?
Sorry, Jeffrey, talking to me?
Yeah, how's it going?
I actually moved out to New York.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Finger Lakes.
How long ago did that happen?
Just last month or so.
Oh, wow. Right on. Congrats. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, it is. It's different. No traffic. No traffic to be found. It's awesome.
Sweet. Got ourselves a good crowd joining in. Jorge, haven't seen you in a minute.
Good to see you guys.
Love the background though.
Yeah. It's hunting season. Brett, long time no see, mate. How you been?
know. How you been? I missed Maggot Fest this year. Bummed.
Well, spring's coming up. I gotta send the invite out.
Is it gonna go back to the normal weekend in the spring?
The third week in May? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I had heard it was gonna stay in the fall, but that's
No. Start competing with we try and get old boys here too, playing competes with Aspen.
Yeah, yep. I'm surprised so many people are on. I thought you guys would be watching Monday Night Football.
What's up? Somebody started talking to it's a state rivalry weekend next weekend, Montana against Montana State. I was like, oh, is it? Yeah, well, I think there's a rugby match. They're trying to, if I understand it right, Montana State University is the best in the Colorado League, whatever they're in. And they are going to North Carolina, but not many other teams are showing up in North Carolina. So it's like two teams are showing up, the winner of the Southeast Conference and Montana. So, okay, we're playing for the championship.
Sounds like the high school national championships every year.
It's like whoever can show up.
Yeah, whoever pays to be there.
So everybody, I figure we'll wait until it's Monday evening. I'm sure people are going to be showing up a little bit late. Let's wait until 7:05 and then we'll get started. Just FYI, everybody, this is being recorded, so
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Dole roar. That's all I'm saying.
What color kit are you guys all getting? Are you going all three flavors?
I like a bag of Skittles. Why would you just get one?
You can mix and match every weekend too.
You need all three colors in both weights of shirt.
Oh,
I'm doing two in the jersey and one in the lightweight performance one. But yeah,
And how many pairs of bright pink shorts are you buying, Jeff?
all the shorts.
size
The
medium.
matching underwear.
I didn't even ask if they could give us the matching underwear. I'm gonna have to go back to rugby shop and
Oh, you're just failing in your fashion duties as the
seriously.
chairman.
But it is one of the lesser known laws of the game of rugby that a player is required to wear underwear and a referee is supposed to inspect the underwear.
Where is that?
In Law 3, I believe.
Oh, okay. It's
Let me go find it.
Do they do that in MLR, Derek?
No, I see 4, sorry. So law 1 is the all items of clothing must comply, which means it must be inspected. And law 4.2 says a player wears blah, blah, blah and underwear.
so if anyone gets arrested, John will be your lawyer.
Is that the only time you wear underwear, John, is when you're required to by law?
I feel like a third of the rugby players are in violation of this at all times.
I feel like it's a law that I never care to know about.
I think we can all agree that socks count as underwear because you wear them under your shoes.
Yes, but do shoes count as clothes?
Ooh.
I'm glad we had this.
Have to go under other clothes.
All right. We are now officially at 7:05. I hate to cut off this scintillating conversation, but I'm super excited that so many people are here. Super excited for us to kick off our monthly training series. Thanks to Brett for setting it up. So Brett, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So, the society has been, I think interested in, continuing education for a while, and it's taken us a little while to get our, butts together. But, the goal is to do monthly kind of educational and trainings. And, we'll go through, obviously tons of different topics. Our goal is to bring in, top referees in the world and in the country, also having kind of like our experienced local referees jump in and lead sessions too. But, kind of monthly, we want to give you, a great, presentation, and with the goal being obviously elevating our referees, but also kind of calibrating between the states, because we are kind of like a broad area that, we don't get to see each other too often. So if we can kind of get on the same page a little bit better for our teams that we serve, I think that's better for everybody. So tonight we have Derek Summers on the call. And Derek, I'm sure if you've watched a high-level game in the US in the last 10 years, you've probably seen him. He's done pro rugby, when that league had its season, MLR the past couple years, and then has done some test matches too. And tonight he has a presentation on the breakdown for us. So with no further ado, Derek, it is all yours.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay, does that work?
Yeah,
Is this sort of working?
Yep.
All good. PowerPoint, good old PowerPoint.
Oh, we got it.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we'll just get right into it. Really, like we said, we want to talk about the breakdown tonight, so we'll just jump right into it. It'll be kind of a mix of clips, a couple of videos around just decisions, couple of videos around positioning. So wanted to just sort of touch the basics first, talk about some of our priorities, speak a little bit about management and what that may or may not look like, and then give you some positional tips. Just sort of throw it all together. So just sort of a warning here. This is not, right or wrong. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And, just because I said it may not be the way that works for you, or what, what other people might be interested in telling you. I don't know. I've just sort of, it's a trial and error for me is all I can say. So, any of you, like Brett said, if you've watched me ref some of those late league games, you may or may not think I know what I'm talking about. So yeah, and feel free to jump in with questions. Happy to kind of do this however we want to do it. It's not just cut and dry, sit and listen to a PowerPoint and watch some clips. So just starting off, really, this is just kind of how I got started really getting into these high level matches. Just started out with my definitions, just making sure I was right on what I knew a tackle was and wasn't. And that might sound really basic to some people, but for me, this is just sort of how I got going. And granted, the tackle definitions are not the same as they used to be. Used to be a tackle occurs when the ball carrier is held by one or more opponents and brought to ground. Now it's as you see here. So just making sure you're clear on your definitions, holding a ball carrier, bringing him to ground. So why do I say that? Well, sometimes we have a situation where players are on the ground and maybe we don't have a tackle. It's also really clear as who a tackled player is. It's clearly held and taken to ground by a tackler or tacklers. And then who is a tackler? If you hold the player and bring him to ground. Again, like, why is that important? Well, there's certain things a tackler can do, and then players that aren't tacklers, or if we don't have a tackle situation, then other laws might apply. So you've probably seen some of this before. I'm not going to go through all of it necessarily. We might skip through a little bit. Yeah, where to start? It's all about the tackler, really. If you're looking for somewhere to focus on in the beginning, or you're really, trying to get to a next level, your focus is all on the tackler. You want to get quick ball, you want to get flow, you want something like that. I think your initial focus is on that one player. The new laws, when I say by new laws, I think within the last couple of years, we've sort of had an emphasis where we've gone back and focused on the ball carrier a little bit. So there's been a little bit of focus on the ball carrier. If you remember when rugby got back going in New Zealand specifically, there was a bit more of an emphasis on making sure that ball carrier is kept honest, like on the ground, rolling, situations like that. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. When in doubt, we always want to support attacking rugby. So I don't know, I've sat in meetings with coaches, heard referees, high-level referees say this, national team coaches. One national team coach once told me, he said, if all referees in America just went out and just refereed the defense, just refereed the tackler and made sure players rolled away, made sure they rolled away, that's all they'd have to do. We'd have a great game. We'd clean up the game. We'd get something that people can enjoy, people can focus on. Now, that's where you start, and then you get into the more details after that. But first and foremost, you want to support attacking rugby as much as possible. At the end of the day, this is something that people want to understand, want to enjoy, the general public, things like that. So things to be aware of: quality of contest, quality of clean out, position of strength. So quality of contest, is one team dominant in the tackle? Did we break the gain line? Is it two defenders on one attacker? Is it two attacking players on one defender? Is it go forward ball? Some people call it positive or negative tackles. However you want to say it. If we have any coaches, team coaches on the call, I don't know, whatever you might want to call that. Quality of clean out. Is it players coming from, high speed, or is it players that overran the tackle and you get a, just sort of a guy hugs a dude basically to clean him out, or somebody get basically smoked in the breakdown? So those are factors to think about. Position of strength. Is everyone, in a good rucking position? Or are they overextended? Are they completely off their feet? Or, if it's one of those plays where ball carriers or jackals go in, if you pick their hands up, are they going to fall straight on their face, or are they in position of strength where they're holding their weight?
Derek, could you and feel free to tell me that you're going to get into it later, but
sure.
You're talking about quality of tackle, I believe, on the previous slide.
Yeah.
When you say positive or negative tackles, are you just talking about whether or not they're breaking the gain line and the ball carrier is going to ground on their own terms?
More or less breaking the game line. Yeah, like do they have go forward ball, or is the defense, tackling them 5 meters behind the game line? Is it, are support players having to retreat to get back in a position of support, or are they able to go forward and kind of take a better, more natural angle to enter the breakdown? Just kind of like who has momentum, basically, is what I mean.
Okay, and so depending on who has momentum, is there different things that you would look at?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into there'll be a couple of examples, but basically, like, when teams are under pressure, say an attack's under pressure, teams are more likely to either come through the side because they have to take a weird angle, or they have to, support players have to go off their feet because, again, they're under pressure. So a lot of teams seal when they're under pressure. Or if you're going forward, say defense is, you flip that the other way. Defense is under pressure. Defenders might come through the side, or they might be in situations where they, make a desperate play to get a turnover so they don't roll away, or they lose their feet, stuff like that. Or you get sometimes teams are too aggressive, like attacking players are too aggressive. They might, you might go off their feet, but it's not material because they already have go for it ball. So, I mean, there's all kinds of examples around like who has momentum and who doesn't. And a lot of it has to do with whether or not they break the gain line most of the time. So it's just kind of, yeah. We'll get into a couple of clips here shortly, but yeah, that's what I mean by quality of contests.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All good. Yeah. All good. All clear on the other two.
Derek, there's the previous slide you're talking about what the tackler's responsibilities are. There's no mention there of being on getting to their feet.
Which one here?
Yep.
Yeah, just it's kind of our basics. So we want them to release. We want them to roll away. If they do choose to enter the breakdown, then they need to be on their feet. Okay. Most of the time, we're kind of focused on them to move away. So yeah, you are correct. There is another aspect to that. I mean, there's all kinds of things the tackler needs to do, but this is our main priority. We want them to release. We want them to get away.
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, if they do play the ball, they have to play the ball from the correct side. And again, I got a couple of diagrams coming up. Arriving players, first thing to kind of think about, are they part of the tackle or not part of the tackle? Do they come from the correct side? Did they remain on their feet? Is it material? So are we going to allow a contest, or do we need to give a whistle? Again, are they in position of strength? So are they on their feet? Are they lifting the ball? I have a couple of little things here. If you've been on the D1A calls, you've seen some of these notes probably. Jackal, is the tackler clear? Did they release, or are they not part of the tackle? So if they brought him down, if they're tackle assist, as we used to call it, or if they're first man in, do they beat the ruck? Are they in a position of strength, like we said, on their feet? Is there a clear lift to the ball? And then do you need to blow the whistle, or have they earned it? Or can we play on? So make them earn it. You don't want to necessarily be too quick. And then, you have the situation where they don't win the ball, or you don't want to be too late if you get a big pile up. So it's one of those, like, can the ball still be played, or is the whistle, is the ball killed, if that makes sense? So you might hear this theme a little bit as we go on. Let it breathe is kind of the big takeaway for me. So let it breathe. Tackler must not impact the turnover or the clean out. This is our first priority. So we're okay to let the contest play out if nothing is clear or the breakdown is still in doubt. Good read of that is often you're looking at the 9. So when you're looking at, in the game situation, when you're running with the 9, something to read is the 9 ready to play, or whoever's in that scrum half position. Are they ready to play, or are they still waiting to get to the breakdown? If the guy's still standing there and he's got his arms up and he's waving and he's ready to play and the ball's not available, that might give you a signal that, hey, they might be delaying this or might slow this down illegally. And then a couple of these picture fit the penalty. So if you're giving something like guys off his feet, it's a lot better when you make that decision that player is laying on the ground rather than standing right up next to you. Or same with roll away. If you tell a player he didn't roll away when he's, you know, a good couple meters from the breakdown. And then again, delayed whistle, like you can hold that whistle as long as you need to if you're not sure. And then the last one is unplayable. Just kind of one of those, if you're not sure, it's not clear and obvious, it's always okay every now and then to just give an unplayable. Ball's not coming out. I don't know, a couple players off their feet, 2 defenders, 1 attacker. We're going to give an unplayable, move on.
Hey, Derek, we
Yeah.
used to use a term that the jackler must survive the clean out.
Yeah.
Is that still kind of the standard or has that changed?
Well, I think that was one of the things that we always talked about, but I think sorry, let me go back to this. As I always was kind of told, if they are in a position of strength and they do make a clear lift on the ball, like position of strength and lift on the ball, they should survive the clean out. Right?
Ideally.
Like
But
if
you
they
always
have to
get those weird ones where, you know, they're in a position of strength, they lift the ball, you know, and then they get cleaned out. And it's kind of one of those that it looks bad because you want to give the penalty when, you know, that player survives because it just looks like a clear picture of holding on.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
kind of those awkward ones where, you know, they do try to lift, you know, they're not able to get it, but then they get cleaned out.
I think like when we get those, like, because sometimes you get players that just smother a guy on the body, you know, like if they get in a position of strength and there is a lift on the ball, then you should see some movement on the ball. You know, the ball should be at least move a little bit. If it's one of those where the ball's always stayed on the ground, or the player, you know, the ball ends up on the ground, the player gets lifted. You kind of ask yourself, like, did they have a lift on the ball? So we're good on the position of strength, but were they on the ball? Like, were they on the ball or were they not on the ball? And I think like if the quality of contest is good, so it favors them. So they're, you know, first man in, they've clearly beaten the ruck and they're in good position to physically lift. Then if you don't want to take too long, then they should be rewarded rather than like, because sometimes you get guys that don't survive the clean out, but they've had a lift on the ball because they get driven back. And I don't know, sometimes you can't hold on forever, especially if the guy's holding the ball on the ground. It's really difficult when you get into that sort of fight scenario. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's one of those things you can think about. Like I would say like your keys around if you're in good position and you see that clear lift. So like, should they win it? Is it the expected outcome like that they do win it, or is the expected outcome one team has, you know, a lot of momentum and we can play through?
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And then a ball carrier, just again, we're going over the basics right now. Do we have a tackle or do we not have a tackle? Again, like, are they held? Are they not? Is the player isolated? And then are they given an opportunity to release, place, or pass the ball? So one of those situations where if the tackler is never released, specifically like if they're up on their upper body, are they in the way? Or were they prevented to you know, be given an opportunity to release, place, or pass the ball? You don't have to let them do it. They just have to be given an opportunity to do it. So you see guys like get tackled on their feet, something like that. Then you kind of play that one by ear. So if he still is able to release, pass, or place the ball, then no problem. The gate, again, we've also kind of seen this. We have a wide gate scenario, arriving players. This is all in the game management guidelines. So just kind of one of those, like if you've ever heard the phrase like planes landing, planes taking off. Kind of that picture on the bottom, that's sort of the picture you're going to really look for in those ceiling scenarios. Sometimes players will go off their feet, but it doesn't really, it's not super material. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, the rugby is a game played on its feet, because we all kind of know that's a bunch of nonsense. So yeah, just something to think about again. And this all kind of goes into what we talked about earlier around like momentum, like who's under pressure, who's not under pressure. The player's off his feet, like the bottom scenario, but he's got 4 other players behind him and there's 1 defender. Is that really worth penalizing? Versus if that blue player is off his feet and we have 1 or 2 defenders who are in a good position and are legal, then we get in the scenario where a turnover could be likely. So then we would want to penalize, but not always is it going to look so cut and dry, obviously. But again, these are just kind of the basics for you want to think about. Like the scenario where a lot of teams, like the low clean out, like if a ball carrier gets tackled, the defender's still on him. We want to look for them to drive through, not on the ball carrier. So we want him to drive past. So if he makes contact with the blue player, he goes forward, rolls through, or you get into this situation where he's standing basically at the front. So again, doesn't always look so cut and dry. These are nice diagrams, but yeah, just something to kind of be aware of how it's supposed to look. And then when we get on the field, when it doesn't look so clean, what you might think of. When you want to pass the ball, obviously this is a situation where there would be no ruck because it's not covered, if that's clear. Yeah. This is what I was talking about, where you kind of want to roll players. So again, you just kind of, I don't know, some teams like it's a scoop basically, or I don't know how you would call it. Yeah. Gator roll. Just an example of a gator roll.
Stipping is Wadden, makes great yardage. Does the flanker. Now Canada.
It's kind of one of those, like we want to make sure if they are going to roll that player,
Stipping is
not around the neck
Wadden
area,
makes
so it's around the
great
waist. Now the new laws around you can't drop weight onto a player's limbs do apply. I don't have a good clip around that, but if we're going to have situations where players do have a gator roll, this is sort of what we want it to look like. And a lot of times it has to do with a defender whose head and shoulders are below their hips. So basically he has like nothing else to hit. So he's in good support, not really coming from depth, so can't really get under the defender. So the only really option he has here to clear him out, other than to just fall on him, is to roll him out in that way. If you see any contact around the neck, those are immediate whistles, penalty, potential yellow card situations. So yeah, just something to think about. Don't really see it too often now, but it does still happen.
Derek, can you discuss? So there was reference in the chat feature about Kevin had made reference to the fact of heads. If the head is below the hips, then it's a no-no. However, the clip you just showed is exactly what we're looking at, which was the head is below the hips when the poacher goes to jackal.
Yeah.
So that I want to. Can you go back to that reference, because arguably that's an issue where we're going to see head below hips if a jackler is trying to poach ball. He can't.
Sure.
It's going to be impossible to keep your head up and above the hips, because you're just going to get taken out. You're offering the clear out something to hit.
Wadden makes great.
Yeah.
So how can we get when we're rucking, there's a difference between jackling and ruckling, I guess, in that issue. If a jackler is going for the poach, his head is going to be below his hips.
Yeah.
Because he's going to try to create a low profile.
Sure.
If the guy is rucking, his head's going to be up a little bit higher than his hips, because if he doesn't, the planes are landing and essentially you're collapsing the ruck at that point. So we need to recognize the difference between a jackler who's jackling and his head may be below his hips, and somebody who's rucking where we anticipate the head's got to be higher.
Yeah,
So I
I
just
mean,
I want to make
yeah.
reference to that fact.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's one of those, like, is he making a play on the ball, or his hands on the ground? Where you could think, like I mentioned earlier, like if we take his hands away, are they gonna just fall over? I just kind of looking at this picture, this is kind of I don't think, and again, it's tough because they're all moving at speed. So ball carrier is still going forward, there's momentum. Jackal's kind of not in, it's one of those plays like the Jackal's not going to happen. So, but he's got to make a play on it anyway. So it's one of those, you just kind of got to judge it. And again, talking about like if the player's delayed, so do we even need to whistle? So like just looking at the timing of the 9 as well. So yeah, you could argue he's maybe off his feet. Was the ball slowed down in any kind of way? I would say no. So it's just one of those, like, looking at you again, you're just throwing in all the factors. So yeah, he might be off his feet, and then okay, the clean out's good. A lot of times, go forward ball, the attackers will take care of it yourself. So it's one of those, like, okay, I've seen him, he's off his feet, or I'm happy that he's marginally, head below hips marginally, but he is making the play on the ball. And then I might wait a second, see what the clean out does. If the clean out is poor and the player is remaining on his feet and makes a lift on the ball, then I'd reward him or try to play through the turnover. If he gets cleaned out, then I have nothing to do. So I don't know. I mean, it's a complicated game. That's what I'll say. Like, yeah. I didn't see what the chat said, but hopefully that's someone answered it.
No, it did. It's just we've got to. Part of the dilemma is as officials, we want to have a contest at the ruck. We want to have jacklers going for the ball because ultimately, if the offense clears them out quickly, you've got space to manipulate.
Sure.
Because if there's no jackler, there's going to be no space out wide. So we've got to create a fine medium between getting a contest at the tackler and at the tackle so that we draw in the defense and we don't want to go too far to the other extreme where we're not denying a contest and we don't want to, there's got to be a happy medium and you've got to get a feel for it.
Yeah. And you might have, and that's something you just kind of go game to game with. Like one game you might favor the attack more than you should have, and all the penalties go against the defense. So you're just maybe hammering teams. You're giving yellow cards for repeated infringement. And then maybe you look at the video and think, okay, I could have maybe let 1 or 2 of those go. If I let some of those go, maybe I wouldn't have put myself in a situation where I'm giving warnings and giving cards. And then the next week you might have like 6 or 7 holding on penalties. And think, okay, maybe I took it a little bit too far, and then you sort of go game to game. I don't know. That's just sort of how I learned it, really. Rather than focus on the whole game as a whole, like worrying about every single call and decision, you're maybe thinking about like, all right, those are like maybe 2 or 3 breakdowns each game where I saved a whistle, or maybe I delayed blowing the whistle and then I let it play through. I don't know however you guys do your coaching with your guys' group, but that's something you could maybe think about. Like,
a couple of thoughts, Mike. This is Peter Buckley. Couple of thoughts. One, if the player's going to come in legally to be the jackal, i.e., the ball stealer, the ruck is not formed, because as soon as the ruck is formed, he cannot steal it because the ruck is formed. The ball's in the ruck.
Right.
Ergo, then the issue about shoulders being above hips is kind of immaterial a little bit with the jackal, because he's coming in and he's getting into position to get that ball prior to the formation of the ruck. Now, maybe what he needs to do is to come in approaching the ruck position, but once he gets into position to get the ball, he can get his shoulders below his hips because he has to do that to get the ball. So I think there's something of a nonsense about saying you've got to, the jackler has to be in the shoulders up, ass down position, forming the ruck because there ain't a ruck.
No, nobody says that. That's
Well,
not, nobody says that.
Yeah. Are you supporting your weight? Really? Again, it's one of those,
I mean,
take your
supporting
hands
weight.
away, you're going to fall over. I don't care if your hands are below your hips or head and shoulders below. You still have to keep your feet. You can't, and in defense, you still have to keep your feet, whether that's a tackle or a ruck. So just one of those things.
The key thing is that the player who's supporting, who is coming in order to ruck, must have their head above their hips. Jackler is there before ruck is formed. As soon as there's contact, that's anybody else who's joining now has to have head above hips.
All good. Yep, you're right there, Munga. Squeeze ball. Yeah, this is a squeeze ball. Not much more to talk about there. I don't know if you guys have problems with this in high school.
Yeah, very much so.
Still an issue. It's just one of those, like, if the first time you see it, it's however you want to manage it. I don't know if this is something you guys come up with yourself. Like, are you blowing the whistle and saying, stopping it and giving a scrum and saying that's squeeze ball, let's not have that again? Or if you want to penalize it immediately and give you a reason for that. It's just one of those, however you guys want to handle it as a society. I'll leave that to y'all. Okay, we got a couple of clips here. We'll get into, this one's like a tackle or no release. So again, our what we're really looking for is daylight. So it's one of those, like we say, if we have to see a replay, that maybe wasn't good enough. So tackle or release.
Here, the CK, wind in the sails of the Warriors. And the penalty as well. The crowd really getting behind the Warriors here. You could feel them.
Who's that handsome referee?
Yeah, those are very pink.
The CK, wind in the sails here.
Yeah, so we got go forward ball.
Wind in the
Momentum's
sails of the
going one
Warriors.
way. Support is there
And the
immediately.
penalty as well. The crowd really
One of
getting
those,
behind the Warriors
are
here.
we, are we happy with daylight, or do we want to see a clear release? And depending on the time, this is 45 minutes. So think of this as like 5 minutes into the second half. A lot of times you want to kind of reset your standards a little bit, reestablish control. If you're not happy with enough daylight, then you're given the penalty.
Could you show that one more time and just talk about what your trigger was there?
Here.
Like what was it that made you decide it was material?
I think it was just,
Here.
for me, it's just I'm not seeing quick enough of a release, and he's just a little too slick for my taste, really. And again, Peter Dahl was probably one of the best guys in the country at poaches sometimes. So we didn't always get it right. I've got a couple of clips that show when he was right, and we didn't reward him. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those, like,
Here.
again, like how I approach it is it's 40 minutes and 40 minutes. So the first 5 minutes of each half, first 10 minutes, you're going to go out and you're going to just set your standards in any kind of situation where you're not necessarily looking to penalize, but it's one of those, if he got to his feet, he had a decent enough release and he got a clean poach, I might have played on. But for me, because he didn't give me enough daylight, the ball wasn't, ball is basically killed. Like, it's not coming out here.
And the penalty as well.
So I'm in a situation where I penalize. It's not the greatest camera angle, but yeah, it's just one of those, like, if you have to see a replay, which is what we always say, then it's not good enough. This one's a bit more clear. It's actually the AR calling that in. So they've gone to ground. We have no, remember our checklist. So as he released, has he gotten to his feet? Has he played the ball from the correct side? He hasn't done any of those things. He's not on his feet. He's never released. He's a part of the tackle as he's gone down, whether he's a tackle assist or a proper tackler. then he's gotten a turnover. A lot of times you want to make sure those turnovers, especially under pressure, are fairly squeaky clean. And here's like a couple of examples around what we want to see around around rewarding a jackal versus a tackler not rolling away yet.
He takes to the ground, and it's going to be a penalty. He didn't release.
Fast to the
It's
ruck.
kind of one of those situations where if you want to allow the turnover, you want to make sure when you blow the
Skipping over,
whistle and the
gets it
dust
back
all
in.
settles that the initial tackler is not laying on the ground right in the way.
Side. He takes to the ground, and it's going to be a penalty. He didn't release.
Fast to the ruck. Fast to the ruck, holding
Yep.
on there.
So this is actually a pretty good example of a referee adjudicating the positive and negative tackle.
Yep.
You notice that red is going forward at this position, and the blue players are put in a position of pressure because they've got to retreat to get behind the ball, whereas red is going forward at tackle. So in situations where you have a tackler going forward at the tackle, you're going to want to play it a little bit more lenient towards the defending side because they're in a position of strength. They're going forward.
Yeah. I will say though, I mean, looking at that one, and Jack put that in his review, that if he had to do that one again, he gives that the other way because again, our priority again is going to be the tackling. So it's one of those, like, if momentum does go in your favor, you still want to make sure that the picture fits the penalty. So no one's going to argue that the tackler didn't roll away. So most of the time you could give that. Again, it's rugby, so not all of us are going to agree, and the breakdown is super complicated. So it's just one of those, it's however you want to do it. So in that one, like Paul said, he maybe favored momentum more than the tackler rolling away. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes it's not. It's just one of those, on review, can you defend it or can you not, or does it make sense? A lot of times we do see this picture. These are those, they're giving it to you on the silver platter. Just take it. It's one of those. I think a lot of times when we want to like justify not giving a penalty, and again, I don't know how many penalties are in this game. I don't know the context, but it's one of those, like, if you get situations where players end up on the wrong side of the breakdown, it's most of the time it's their problem and nothing wrong with penalizing it. We always used to say it's really hard to roll away without the use of your arms and legs. If it's in like a situation where it's like slow ball or a team, is going to box kick out of pressure or something like that, you might give some leeway. It just depends. Again, not knowing any context around this game, but kind of those pictures, can you defend that decision if you give the penalty? I'd say most of us would say yes. This one's a little bit more debatable, but not really for me.
Your first 5 points. Sabercats will try to spread it out.
To find Bellicano, nowhere to go. Austin getting a great line defensively.
So again, just sort of look at the clock here. So we're 2 minutes and 42 seconds in the game. We have an attacking. This is coming off of a line out. What I mentioned earlier around, is the 9 delayed or is the 9 ready to play? I would say the 9 is ready to play. And we have a situation where a tackler just sort of ends up on the wrong side. This early in the game, it's one of those, like, they're giving you the opportunity to penalize and create a standard. This is kind of when you would want to take it.
Eyeing your first
Just
5
looking at the
points.
9 here on the
Sabercats will
ground.
try to spread it out.
To find Pelicana, nowhere to go. Austin.
You might
getting
say,
great
yeah,
line defensively,
they get it
quick to
out
the
slow enough, but it's just one of those, you end up on the wrong side. You do not roll away immediately. Play is delayed. Just penalize, especially early in the game. I don't know, any ref coaches on here have any kind of thoughts around how we'd set
Yeah.
standards that early?
I mean, you've only got about 10 minutes to establish your precedent at a tackle. And in situations like that, you want to be harsher sooner, because if you're not harsher sooner, you're going to get crucified later on in the game as the referee. So it's better. You can always ease up. It's hard to get control once you've gotten 15, 20 minutes in. So, when I was officiating, it was about setting your standard. Now we're in the conversation of modifying behavior. It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
And I love the phrasing of changing the behavior, because it puts ownership on the player rather than the referee. As a referee, if I set my standard, it's about me. If I penalize early to modify behavior, it's about the player. And so I think it was a huge shift for referees when we started talking about behavior modification as opposed to the referee owning it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it from a player perspective, it's super confusing for a player who gets penalized for something in the 75th minute that they didn't get penalized for in the 5th minute.
All right, this is kind of an example of when it's okay to play on. And again, our trigger here, reading the 9. So is play affected? Do they get clean ball? Is ball out? Or do we need to make a decision based on the tackler interfering with play? It's just kind of a classic example of maybe wait a second and see what happens. We even have a player who comes in earlier. I don't think that's even the 9 that actually passed. The 9's coming in, he's ready to go, and then his teammate picks it up, and then they pass it. So can't fault the referee for recognizing that the player needs to roll away. No issues there. The ball carrier kind of gets himself in a weird position too, and so just one of those. Always give it a second, maybe, let it breathe. Just can't stress that enough. Kind of how we see trends go especially in the D1A lately. Just let it breathe a little bit. So he's doing everything he can. If I was a defensive coach, I'd probably wonder what more my guy needs to do. And I think, in review, the referee agrees we're going to play on situation. So, timing is kind of here. And it's one of those, like, you can always call it late, but you can't really take it away once you do call it. Yeah.
Hey, Derek, what's the guidance being given to teams as far as, their players rolling away? Is there certain guidance that's, are they supposed to roll away a certain direction? Kind of what do you want to see? What do you not want to see?
Yeah. So we'd want them, just going back to this, we'd want them to go. So the blue player, basically he can go to the right, he can go to the left, or he can go to his side. We don't want him to get in that red area. So towards where it says red gate, basically. That's sort of our no man's land. And a lot of times, I don't know, thinking about what pictures you might be looking for. Those are kind of those non-negotiables. So non-negotiables being tackler doesn't roll away, tackler rolls into the 9, tackler doesn't release, tackler gets to his feet but doesn't move away. Basically any direction except into the attack is fine. We don't want to be too, again, it's not always like cut and dry. So if they roll east-west, then we're good. If they roll, to the south side, I guess, being into the attack, then we have a problem. This is kind of a good example of an east-west exit.
Get out faster.
We're just kind of, again, I talked about earlier, the penalty fit in the picture. When the whistle comes, the player's already on their feet and they've already moved away. So
Get out faster.
you're looking at the clock here, 4 minutes into the game, and I think, Paul, you mentioned the setting the standard is clear. We all go out with that MO, and that's fine. But when your standard is unattainable or unrealistic, then you can kind of set yourself up for some even bigger problems. So just think about it as, we don't really think about rugby too much from like a player or a team coach perspective. We more think about it as a referee. But it's just, again, it's one of those, like, if I was a team coach, I'd wonder what my player needed to do more. And when you think about that as a ref, it sort of gives you a little bit more of a perspective on what teams are trying to accomplish and how you can sort of play it in that way. Like we said earlier, just it's good to set standards, but they have to be achievable. And then again, this is kind of how we had the clip earlier around, does the tackler do enough to allow the poach, or is the tackler still in the way to affect the clean out?
He's taken down outside the 22 as Matt comes quickly.
Number 12.
Great tackle from Salivar. He's going to need a massive game today, the youngster wearing the 12 jersey. And he owes his side a penalty as well. This is a great start. Very enthusiastic San Diego.
Great work by Nathan Sylvia there to get over the ball on defense. And that means that when that tackle happens, you want to get over the ball and come from your side. You can see Nate Sylvia right there.
So you see like number 12 just kind of getting in the way just enough maybe to affect Matt Turner's clean out. It's just, you could probably go, some people might argue it's a fair penalty. I would say you're better off favoring the attack in this scenario where you want to get that guy as out as he can.
I mean, Matt Turner's a fullback. We can all agree he doesn't actually know. Now there are actually a bunch of calls about this very thing this weekend in the Autumn Nation series, if anybody watched any of those, where like Luke Pierce had a bunch where he was saying, Jackler, your position was fine, but the tackler has to roll away before you can go for that, because basically if that player is preventing a good contest in a ruck, then it's not fair game at that point, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you say. You say to the Jackler, timing was fine, not happy with him, and then you have to roll away or something like that. So it's as simple as that, really.
How much time do you go into articulating that during the course of a game? Because it's great feedback, but at what point do you say, I'm done telling you this?
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably do that early. You do that early. If you're having to do it a whole bunch of times, then you're having a conversation with the captain and saying, listen, I understand you want to contest, but you boys have to wait until your tackler's got to roll away. So, I mean, our first infringement, tackler not rolling. And then you just go from there. Yeah, you don't want to debate it too long. Otherwise it's like, geez, I mean, at what point are we going to call something, or are we going to try to manage or just explain for the whole game? This is being a good example of tackler's kind of done exactly what he's supposed to do, and it's not affecting the poach, not affecting the clean out. Play goes 100%. This goes against momentum, but sometimes that does happen. It's a heck of a play.
It happens fairly frequently when people outrun their support, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, breakaways, right? Like a lot of times we would go, oh, you know, they're going to be under pressure, but if he's isolated, then I guess that's your trigger there. Yeah. Another example, whether they get trapped in.
They may have heard the 20-minute to went because we were 20-minute quarters, but of course just
Me?
usual
What?
laws apply. We're not going to stop when
So,
penalty.
yeah. Just one of those, the timing, Jackal's fine. He's got no issue with being, you know, not releasing, but you just can't really allow this big pile of, you know, of bodies. It's one of those like, yeah, guys might be on top of him. And even if you're not sure, you could even go unplayable, really. Like if you're really unsure and you want to be the super nice referee and say, oh, he wasn't able to get out because the players pinned him in, which again, you sort of open yourself up for some debate there. But
and he put himself there too. Let's acknowledge acknowledge the fact that he looks around and puts himself in that position.
Sure. It's one of those, it's like, it's not my problem, you know, as a ref. It's like, it's not my problem. You put yourself in that situation. You have to roll away. The facts are, these are the facts and they are undisputed, you know, that, you know, there's a tackle, you made the tackle, you didn't roll away, you affected the turnover. It's a penalty. Yeah.
Now with that last clip that's going on there, in your mind, how much are you playing in as far as the level of play? Obviously with MLR, I think what Paul was saying is that he's putting himself in that situation, but less experienced, you know, lower level type of rugby, that might not be the case. Is that something that you're bringing to your mind considering?
Sure. No, you could get in maybe in this scenario if it's slow enough and you had enough time to try to manage out of it and say hands off or something like that. I think at the higher level, you just, it's either, you know, he's effective player, he hasn't. But if you're in a situation where it's maybe slow ball, you could probably talk yourself out of it, or try to, or again, do an unplayable. Yeah, you know, not every scenario is the same. And especially, you know, maybe if you're doing a high school game, you've had like 3 penalties for not rolling away, and you really don't want to have to give a 4th one and then go down the road of maybe giving a card or having a warning situation, then you could always do an unplayable, or, you know, try to talk them out of it. You know, you don't want to let it linger on too long, because then players get frustrated and you get some other things that you don't really want to deal with. But yeah, I would say depending on the level, you could try all your options in your, you know, all the tools in your toolbox, as they'd say.
So can I weigh in on this one? Because I do a fair range of like, you know, I do everything from U14 up to D1 men's. And in my experience, even the 12 and 14-year-olds understand if you tell them you're on the wrong side of the tackle, right? They get that. And so the only thing that I would differ when I'm reffing a U14 is I would be more vocal about you're in the way of the ruck and therefore you're not rolling away and it mattered. Whereas at, you know, a D1 men's game, I would just say not rolling away. You know, at that level, you don't have to coach it. But but the base level of expectation is that if you are interfering with a supporting player coming into ruck, then you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Derek, can I ask you a question? In this particular game, do you recall the game?
Oh yeah.
So how many tackler not rollaways did you have prior to this clip?
Not too many. It was a pretty wide open game. Yeah.
So the reason why I ask is that we're 20 minutes in and it's a 5-5 game.
Yeah.
I assume that's 20 minutes into the first half.
Correct.
And it looks like we're on the Whites defending side, close to the 10 meter line. So was there ever a thought in your mind about going to a card at this point, or was that just was that an FU penalty, no more?
No, I don't think this was a card situation. I don't have the stats exactly in front of me, but we never really. The only time we had a card situation was actually when the white team was under pressure. They had like 2 or 3 penalties under pressure. But yeah, I think this is just, for me, it's just a cut and dry. There's a penalty, roll away, and then we moved on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All good. Because we're like midfield, we're not in the 22. This might have been like maybe the second or third penalty in the game. It wasn't too many. This is a bunch of South Americans playing against Glendale. Just for context, they were there for a combine or whatever. But yeah, it was more of an exhibition game. So the spirits was played in great spirit. We'll just say that. All right, so we've gotten. Let me make sure I don't have any other. This one's kind of a example on Let It Breathe. So just kind of situation where we have a contest. We want to allow the contest, but if nothing's necessarily clear and obvious, try to play through when you can. So just maybe see where the ball ends up when the referee blows the whistle. So you see the ball is being picked up by the player at the end. So it's just one of those, like, I think the penalty was for off his feet. I'm not entirely sure. Just one of those, like, does the picture fit the penalty? And then if you wait another second, could you maybe get something out of it? This was kind of the discussion we had around this clip in the meeting a couple of weeks ago. It's not the greatest contest. White players, White might even be off his feet, the support player, but just one of those, like, did you need to call this or did you not need to call this? And for a lot of us, we have problems like this where we give a penalty and the 9 has the ball at its feet. Most of the time, what are they going to do? They're going to take a quick tap, and then we get into a whole other problem around quick taps and back 10s and extra penalties and yellow cards and more of that. So just something to kind of think about where you allow a contest a little bit. You don't even need to say anything, or if maybe you're right here and you say red hands off or red leave it, because the support is still coming. Like, they're not super organized. We got one player on one player. There's another support coming in right there. The 9's not even there yet. The 9's just now getting to it. He's in the white boots. So it's one of those, you could maybe try to play it if you can, if the ball's not killed. So, it's just, I don't know, a lot of times when you really squeeze that as hard as you can, like, to not blow the whistle, you'd be surprised how low you could go in terms of penalties. We always get a little freaked out around penalty counts and whatnot for some reason, but this is kind of one of those things you could maybe think about. Okay, a couple of these are on tackler not releasing. A lot of these come around the momentum. So this is off a kick chase, and sort of one team has momentum.
High kick.
Who's under pressure?
Looking to be fielded by number right, Wesley White.
You might look at it and again, not everything is super clean. You might have issue with the tackler, or you might have issue with whether there was clear release. But in terms of what you're looking for around momentum or sealing, a lot of times in these situations, the attack, you're going to get attacking players who are all retreating. You see we have 1, 2, 3 gold players, 4 maybe in support, if you count that last player, versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming in here. 2 players immediately over. Guy beats the ruck. Ball's not coming out, so we have to have a decision one way or the other. And most of the time, based on the momentum in the pressure situation, it would favor the team in black, you could argue. But yeah. Same kind of scenario, making sure we get clear release, no issues with daylight, and then position of strength and clear lift. So he's in great position. Hands, shoulder, whatever, below hips, whatever we want to say, but he's picking the ball up. So clean out comes in. He takes the ball and the ball carrier with him. Easy decision to give.
First scrum of the game. Good tussle. Strong ball.
That's kind of an example of momentum versus reward.
Carlson, what a bust up the middle. They go to the 22. Air Force. Quick support. Holding on, White. Have held on to the possession though, and that's tough. First scrum of the game. Good tussle. Strong ball as they go down that blind side. Jason Carlson, what a bust up the middle. They go to the 22. Air Force. Quick support. Holding on, White. Have held on to the possession though, and that's tough for them because they were looking so dangerous early on.
And that's the one guy that watch right up the gut. Man, I think to bring him down. He got a little isolated. He's very quick off the base of that scrum. Defender, his teammates just a little bit slow getting there, and good defensive.
It's tight because we have a situation where whether or not that's an extra roll or if he should give that ball up to that defender, it's just one of those things. Like, I think now you could even argue that he maybe has an extra role, but just one of those, like, favor the momentum. You think about momentum or support. He is slightly isolated. That was a tricky one. That one could probably go 50-50 for this group, maybe. I'm not sure.
Derek, can you talk a little bit about the practice of players making that extra role to create more time and space to get their support there? We're seeing a lot more players taking a lot more leniency with trying to roll away and maybe get an extra role. What is the typical practice at this point for referees to allow that or not allow it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those, like, when you hit the deck, and unless your momentum is still carrying you forward, from the tackle, if you're making like an unnatural roll, you're doing it so you can keep support. You're doing it for a couple of reasons. Either you're isolated, or some guys are just greedy on the ground, or they're being coached to do it. They're being coached to kind of fight on the ground and make it a little harder. It makes the target a little more difficult for the jackal. So if the jackal's trying to play the ball in one spot and that player continues to roll, that point of contact or point of attack for them is going to change. This is a good example of kind of you getting that elongated, 3 or 4 rolls. So he's tackled, or whether or not he's tackled or not, usually you just don't want to allow that, regardless of where you are on the field. These sort of, these are exaggerated scenarios, and there's really no need for it. So it's one of those, like, if it's unnecessary, you give the penalty, you won't see it again. If you allow him to do it, then they just carry on. You give him an inch to take a mile, right? So.
So from a referee's perspective, the trigger is that unnatural roll.
Yeah, really. I mean, similar to like on the goal line. So, I mean, if you would think of it as like a double movement scenario, you know, and I don't want to say like once you hit the deck, you need to immediately release, because sometimes players just fall on the ground and they slide a little bit if it's wet or something like that. But yeah, it's just one of those like, it seems unnatural. Or what also could trigger it is if there's, you know, if there's a threat in the area, you know, if there's a defender over the ball who could make a play on it, then you might, you know, if it's not as egregious, then you could penalize that and be a little hard on it. Or if it's super egregious, like in this scenario, and these are the easy ones.
Yeah, I haven't yet come up with a good trigger to help referees identify when that unnatural roll occurs.
Yeah.
Because as a coach, as a player coach, I'm teaching it, and we know all of the coaches are teaching it to change that point of contact at the tackle, to create a new point of contact for the defense to try to deal with. It's just a question. It's really just a question of natural movement, but it's difficult to kind of ascertain that from a perspective of a coach telling a referee or explaining what that's to look like.
Sure. And most of the time, you're looking for the bigger ones, you know, that you might let you know, if it's marginal, if you're kind of thinking, okay, I don't know, that one's tight, or then but just play on. And then, you know, it's one of those, save it for the review, and you might think, okay, I got that one wrong. Oh, well, no big deal. But yeah, I can't, you know, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've called it. And since we've sort of started to emphasize it in the last couple of years, obviously it's a bigger deal in sevens, and you probably see it more clearly because there's not as many bodies. But yeah, I mean, it is a tactic for sure. It's just one of those, like, if you're constantly having issues with defenders complaining around that, or you know, the easy ones are the guys crawling on the ground for sure. Like, it's just a point where enough is enough, and you got to make a decision. It's just, as long as you're consistent throughout the game, I think you're okay. Yeah, it's not always so cut and dry. If you darn coaches would just stop teaching people to do this.
Well, if anybody needs practice at recognizing this, let me know. I'll make sure you're assigned to an old boys game. They do it in super slow motion, so it's really good to figure out.
Or refs Paul's team. Yeah.
First scrum of the game.
Yeah. These are a couple of these around side entry. These are wrong. These are, you know, sometimes you might be a little hard on side entry.
Set pieces from the Warriors seem to have found their rhythm. Lasike crashes forward. That is the advantage of a man like Paul. Rath at the back, picks up the big man, Winyao. Yeah, penalty while in
There's a
possession.
theme
That's
of this
the second
game,
one.
and
Fighting his way
these were
forward
not
up
great
the 40-meter
decisions.
line. Jensen. Look at big, tall, and rangy Matt Jensen. And Johnny, you played a lot of rugby in your time, though. He continues to go forward. Fenolio. Still going in the penalty in possession, though. Great for the Warriors. Number 2. Warriors still knocking on the door. Another pick and go. They're close. The Archibald looks for the steal, can't get it. On the ground, Morath. Number 5. Penalty against the Warriors.
Oh my God, show that last one again. That was awesome. He's like coming from exactly the wrong direction.
Yeah, I'd say what are these? There are 4 decisions. This was the only one that was like super clear and obvious. And you see the score and the, you know, field position. So obviously this is a very big decision. Sorry, it's loud here, but yeah, one of those, like, in terms of side entry, a good judge of it is, you know, when they enter the breakdown, you're looking for a picture that they're east-west. If their body is fairly, you know, north and south, that's probably good enough. A lot of times side entry comes from players making mistakes, whether they overrun a play, they don't come from depth. So back to maybe this one.
Rath at the back, picks up the big man.
So that's a bad one. Now when he just touches him, and I'm like, okay, that's side entry, but I wouldn't call that.
To the 40-meter line. Jensen.
So this is a kind of a picture. If that black player in support, say if he was maybe 2 or 3 steps further, he overran his support, overran his supporting line, then that's a scenario where you'd be thinking, okay, side entry is possible. Because they're going forward and he comes from relative depth, and he's at least somewhat positioned north and south rather than facing the camera, you might be okay to play on. Now he does roll him to the side, which sort of makes that picture a little more egregious. Kind of the same scenario. Like, do they come from depth?
Pieces from the
Are they shallow? Do they overrun the play? Is the ball under threat? Otherwise, if it's not really under threat and they come from a decent position, then you can probably play on.
Their rhythm.
I don't even know where the penalty is there, honestly. Like, in defense, this one's in defense. So.
And those set pieces from the Warriors
So
seem to have found their
for
rhythm.
me, the
crashes
the
forward.
key has always been like, are they making shoulder on shoulder contact? In that, if the rucker's first point of contact with the jackler is their shoulder to the jackler's hip, right? And so in the one that you showed right before this, it's really clear that he's not making shoulder to shoulder contact.
Yeah, they hits him on the side. Yeah.
Yep.
The big man.
Yeah.
Penalty while line. Jensen.
Yeah, here. And yeah, boom, that's straight from the side.
Matt Jensen.
Which means that like ruck is supposed to be a north-south pushing contest, and you can't get that unless you've got that shoulder on shoulder. So
Yeah, that's a good point. And it, like this one, for example, it is shoulder on shoulder. So
yep.
He might have slightly come from maybe a little bit, but he's in desperation. But he didn't completely come from the side. He at least hits him shoulder on shoulder. Yeah, that's a good point there, Mongo.
Still going in the penalty in possession. No, great for the Warriors.
Just one of those, like, sometimes if you're looking for it, you'll find it. So maybe don't look for it as hard, but there's triggers to think about. Like, is there a threat, or is the team under pressure? Is there a threat for possession? And then where does the contact come? Does it come on the shoulder? Does it come on the guy's side? A lot of times, what direction is their ass pointed? Is it north and south? Like, are they, vertical going towards one of the goal, their goal line, or are they going east west? And then just sort of a classic off feet. Teams are under pressure. This is just one of those you see all the time. Anytime there's a kick ahead and you have an isolated player, just as a referee, alarm bells should be going off where you're just looking for a seal. Like, players are going to go off their feet, sure, it does happen, but you're looking for that, that clear and obvious plane's landing. That plane is landed. That plane has crashed, and you're giving.
Palau waits. Good follow up from England, and that wins the penalty.
When Slade is the first of them, it gives England a chance to drive them back in a tackle, and when you do that, you've got every chance of winning the.
We took, like I said earlier, if we took his hands away, he would fall right on his face, and he does fall right on his face anyway. So
chance of winning the. Just
anytime you get that kick down immediately with an isolated player who's probably going to slide and go to ground himself. You got support players coming. You're sort of waiting to see it. It's not always going to happen, but it's a classic penalty that is sometimes hard to miss.
Back down the blind side.
It's just kicking in the breakdown. Don't really see it too often anymore after they took the law out. This was the first year that they did it.
Disrupting the ball for Ontario, and look at he's kicking at it right there to kick the ball out. That is no longer.
Yeah. How much longer do you guys want me to just go as long as we want, or what? I don't want to take too long.
So we have 2 hours scheduled. We normally try to go for 90 minutes and then save the last 30 minutes for Q&A, or if
oh sweet. All right, cool.
The last Springboks game or whatever. But yeah, I particularly want to hear your take on this one.
All good. Yeah, taking out the 9, it's just one of those, like, again, when we talked about non-negotiables, and these are things that, at least for me, I did this season where I wrote down like everything that in a breakdown that if I see happens, we're not in a debate. We're just going to blow the penalty. And one of them is taking out the 9. You just always want to err on the side of caution around 9s getting taken out and 9s getting played before the ball's out. Offside. And then just move on. This is early in the game as well. So it just sort of sets a precedent of like, all right, the ball's still in the ruck. He's taking the 9. You can't tackle him. We get in a situation where a lot of 9s will, some of them do what some coaches call taxi or whatever you want to call it. So if the 9 picks the ball up and he takes like 2 or 3 steps and he's going to run before he passes, then happy days. He's a runner at that point. He's free to get tackled. No worries there. Similar to like what you would call like a quarterback, like he's a runner now. So, but the ball's still in the ruck. So you sort of want to protect those 9s as much as you can. Anytime, players get pulled, 9s get pulled, they sort of have, you protect them. They got rights that are different than other players. So you just want to make sure that they're left alone. Otherwise, you're just going to open yourself up for some chaos. So most of the time it's offside. So most of the time it's just an easy penalty, or offside, or you just say something like taking the 9, and then you move on. Players know at this point it's been called so much and emphasized so much that you just have to leave the 9 alone. And then this is just kind of a couple of little points, how we get it wrong. Most of it comes down to position. So if you're in a bad position and you're seeing one thing that didn't happen, or you're not 100%, you're also not reading the contest. Like we mentioned a couple times, whistles too quick. And then we guess. When we don't know, we just sort of make a guess. And it does happen. This is kind of an example of when your position is not bang on, you're going to probably be unlikely to make an accurate call.
The dummy looking to go around is Gethin Davis, man from Cardiff. They'll get a full-on penalty opportunity to clear the lines here.
Second player.
Peter Dahl, we've seen him many times question a referee's call. He said there was no separation.
Peter Dahl, again, he's a hell of a player.
Fairweaver said he did not, but it's going to be New York Athletic Club either way. Going to be able to get across the midfield line for the first time this afternoon. Yes, they do. Good clearing kick. Good defense by New York Athletic Club here with Glendale on attack, and Luke White continues what he did. There's got the Davis going down.
For me, here's the top. You're in the top.
Yeah, I think Peter Dahl was.
So the penalty was for not releasing, but as you can see, it wasn't a part of the tackle. So most of the time you hear people say 45-degree angle. Well, why 45-degree angle? Because generally it gives you a good view of kind of the whole picture. So you can see whether tacklers roll out, you can see whether there's release, you can see that separation if there is a jackal situation. Just sort of gives you a perspective where if you're square on and you're right in the backside of the breakdown, you're not going to be able to see whether or not there was separation, or whether or not that was a player in, first player in, or something like that. So generally, like if you're coming from this situation where you're going back infield, you're better off to just plant right here. So if the referee just planted right here, 45 degree position, waited and let the tackle happen, viewed the tackle, then made a decision, or if there was no contest, then moved to that jockey position right behind the number 9, and then went on to open play. So it's just one of those, like, when you're in position to see the separation or see that he wasn't a part of the tackle, you'll make an accurate call.
Man from Cardiff.
45 degree angle, see the side act, and then move on, find work. Same for like flat, being flat on, you're solely focused on the breakdown. Yeah, just kind of jump through here. How do I have less penalties? Clear, high, but realistic standards. So we want them to play the way that we want them to play, and it's your game at the end of it. So you create whatever game you want to have, and then thinking about playing on versus penalize, or are you over managing? Are you opening yourself up for debates, which causes problems later in the game? Paul had mentioned, earlier the better. I've heard all kinds of metaphors around, substitute teacher. You're sending kids to the principal's office early in the day, it'll save you for issues later in the day, or however you want to do it. That's a Matt Eason one for you. But yeah, unplayables are also another tool. So it's something to think about. Like, if it's just not working, you're not clear and obvious as to what could or could not be a penalty, just give a penalty. Just give an unplayable. Just kind of a breakdown around maybe penalty tracking. So we talk about a lot of, like, 20 penalties is like your magic number. Like, oh, I had 20 penalties. I had a fantastic game, or I had under or over, whatever people want to say. So typically when you get into breakdown penalties, it's going to be around like 12 out of that 20. Back when we had a system that tracked it based on breakdown penalties. So the number was 12. If you split that up, 6 and 6 for each team, split that up for a half, it's 3. So if you think about, again, this is a little bit higher standard for we're talking like a D1 game. This is like players that didn't roll away, defense. We're talking defensive penalties. So 1, 2, 3. So once you did it, okay. Second time you did it, we're gonna have a chat. Third time, someone might go to the bin, or we'll have a real chat if the penalties are spaced out enough. So it's one of those where you don't really worry about counting penalties, but we can all count to 3. And it's one of those, maybe gives you a barometer of 1, 2, 3. Okay, we've had 3. Sometimes you might have 4, 5.5 against the defense. It's just one of those, how you judge it, what that might look like in terms of penalty tracking. So this is just kind of an example of kind of a infringement flow. So this is a game where we have quite a few penalties. We have a situation where we have, if you look at the purple team, so these are tackle penalties. The ones with asterisks are the ones where it happened in the team's 22. So we have a tackler rolling in defense under pressure. We have a ruck offside in defense, and then we have a tackle entry in defense under pressure. And on the blue team, we have just sort of a smorgasbord of penalties. And then we look, this is how the game was managed. So after that chat for the purple team around the 11th minute, we had a conversation. We had 22 minutes without a breakdown infringement. So I would argue management was effective for one team. They got the message, they improved. On the blue side, We had all kinds of breakdown penalties and other penalties. There was never any kind of formal management, and the infringements continued. The only time we had a conversation was in the 52nd minute for a side entry. At that point, it's too little too late. So just something to kind of think about how you would track penalties. So 1, 2, 3. All right, that's 3 of them. Like I said, it could be 4, it could be 5, whatever your threshold is. So, okay, now I have a problem. I need to intervene. Just all kinds of different ways to manage these situations. It's just one of those, however you feel comfortable. I was just going to show like just a couple of little examples around positioning real quick. This is from the first season, and this is just my own example of my philosophy around positioning. That first season was that I wanted to be really tight in and really close. So the closer I was, I could manage. That was my philosophy. It was somewhat effective. However, you really do work a lot harder. And it is very difficult to get a full perspective of everything. So this is just kind of an example of movement that I was trying. Getting real tight, passes going behind me. Real tight in. He's like, get out of my way. Yeah, so it's basically like right in the breakdown, like right up in the breakdown, super close, lots of work, getting very close to the sideline. So you get super tight in, and then you manage and then move out like that. Pass was going behind me. So that was kind of how I was trying it at the beginning of Major League Rugby. This is an example of kind of how Scott Green moves, and we both have the same coach. So we're kind of in the philosophy of you want to give yourself as much space and look as calm as you can. So he kind of tends to stay a little bit more wide. A lot of times we have a situation where you would kind of think like, this is a good angle to view the breakdown. You're at a 45-degree angle. You're making a decision here. You're thinking, do I need to go in? Do I need to go in and manage, or can I stay out and then move forward and get flat and then transition into a position where I turn with the pass and I go wide. So he comes in, he kind of slows up a little bit. And you see he makes a decision where I don't need to go in because the ball's won. It's no contest. And then he transitions to offside, turns, and then transitions back into kind of your standard, like you go from wide to going to a jockey position. So you're here, 45-degree angle, decisions made, or I don't need to go in, nothing for me to do. I'm getting the hell out of the way. I'm going to turn with the pass. You can either do that early or you can wait. You can stand like where he was and then start to move forward as the ball's coming out and turned and passed, sorry. And then you transition into being in the 9's hip pocket. You can see all the way down the line, so you can adjudicate offside as well. And then you just look more comfortable. I think it's just really, for most of us, it's just about looking comfortable.
And I think we can all agree that the most comfortable look that you could possibly have is in brand new PNRRS pink kit. Nothing.
And pink boots. And pink boots. And pink boots.
And pink boots. We don't have those on the on the web shop yet, but we'll get them. We'll get them.
He stays wide. Stays wide. Never really has to go in. Sorry. And then yeah, just comfortable. And then I was just going to show. This is just kind of working with my coach again of just keeping some distance and then being aware of where danger is. So danger is usually like between the attack and the defense. So I want to get the hell out of danger, because if you see me get smoked a couple of times, it does not feel good to get hit by a 250-pound block. So we're just kind of transitioning from position to position. So we're wide, getting a little bit more depth, then stepping into the D line, then turning, and then backtracking a little bit. It's just one of those, I don't know, if you ever played 9, the running lines of a ref are basically the same as a 9. I mean, they really are.
And you have to be just as mouthy.
Just as mouthy, for sure, for sure. So you even watch the 9 here. He's standing right behind me right here, and you see he's expecting a line break because he's going to cheat here. He's going to run. So just like a referee, we cheat a little bit. He overruns it, and he's going to come all the way back. Step into the D line, and then I could even run back a little bit to get in quicker position. But you just go from position 1 being kind of here to position 2 being a jockey where you trail. It's just, I don't know, it's just 1 and 2. Those are it. Let's just go from here to there, and then that's your movement really.
The D line, if it's like say you're doing a club game in Texas and you don't have ARs.
Yeah,
I
would. I'd probably be even more comfortable. Like maybe too comfortable sometimes, but it's just sometimes if you like you don't want to necessarily go too early. Like if you go too early, like if I'm like balls there and I already go, then I'm not reffing anymore. So you want to just like keep reffing. It's like if you go and just camp out in the D line, you at least have a job to do. So you're still going to at least try to look down the line and adjudicate offside or manage them to be offside. Just one of those, like if you go too early, then you're just, you're just, what are you even doing anymore? You're just an observer, I guess. It's one of those and it's okay. Like however you do it, it's a different kind of way to manage depending on where you are.
I think your timing was great. The clip of Scott, he moved in way earlier, kind of.
Might go earlier,
So especially, I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No, go ahead. Say it.
I was going to say, especially for younger refs, a lot of younger refs find themselves standing frequently on the defensive side. And I would caution against that because, for a few reasons, but the first is that you generally, if you're a newer ref, especially, you want to keep your eyes on the defense because they're the ones who are going to be cheating at this point, right?
Yeah.
But then also, if they swing that ball out, and you're standing on the defensive line, as the defensive line rushes up, it's easy to miss tackle penalties, like high tackle, like dangerous tackle. So I'd urge people to not stand on the defensive line too often. Like occasionally, it's no good.
Yeah, you don't want to hang out. It's just you still got work to do, and sometimes we can hang out in that position and just sort of lull ourselves to sleep here. So what I was sort of told to do is like you're in here, and then you see the 9's going to pick it up, and then you have your check, and if they're offside before the ball's out, and then you step through. You sort of find that slot in between a defender, step through, have your check, and then you run into your position. So it's just, and that takes a hell of a lot of work. Honestly, I've done it because I've been on fields with setting up cones, and you can even do this in your kitchen where you work on your turns. It's just literally like, if the breakdown is on your left, you're even with the scrum half. He's about to pick it up. So you look to your right, you make sure no one's offside. Then you're stepping forward. I mean, we were even talking like, is my outside foot behind my inside foot? So it's easier for me to turn, and my hips are open to the wide players, stuff like that.
I love the way that you put it just that you're looking for another job to do. That's great.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Let me break in here in that we're at, an hour and 40 minutes. And just want to, is it okay if we open it up to questions, see if anybody has other, whatever they want to ask about?
Go for it. A lot of chat in there. Sorry. I didn't see any of these. Fire away.
Come on now. Like every time I'm on the hot seat, like people just cannot shut up with questions. I know you got some questions for Derek.
Derek, I'm mostly interested in your kind of match week prep and what that timeline looks like. If you've got a game Saturday, kind of what does your week like and what are you doing?
Physically or mentally or all of it?
All of it. Film.
Film. I'd be watching the last 2 games at least of the teams. If it's a rematch, I'd definitely be watching the previous time that they played. You're looking for what they do in the set piece. So if they have any kind of funky moves, so if they're slick off the line out or any kind of trends like that, how good their scrum is. In terms of breakdown, mainly just be looking at who the key players are in the breakdown. Like, do they have an aggressive 6 or 7? Who might be a problem, basically. You don't want to go on preconceived ideas, but you'd have an idea of who I'm going to deal with. So like, for example, ref in Toronto. So I know ref in Toronto, Lucas Rumble is probably the best poacher in the league. So I would know that, okay, Rumble's going to be there. He's probably going to be legal most of the game. So be ready to let him contest or something like that. So in terms of physical prep, depends on where we're at in the season. I go back to like when I played football, where we had Friday night games. Tuesday, Wednesday were like your work days. Thursday was like your light walkthrough. Monday was like your prep light day. So we used to operate on like a match day minus and plus system. So like match day -2 would be you'd have like a heavier workout or like a longer run or a more intense workout, whatever you're wanting to do. Match day -1 would be light, so you'd probably just do some like mobility or barely any, depending on your travel situation. If you're getting up early, sometimes if it's a night game, I would try to maybe get a run in during the day and just get like a little blowout, like in the hotel gym or something like that. If you're reffing to like altitude, that's always a good idea too. Just sort of get a little run in during the day, so you're not at Glendale where the mic is super loud and you're huffing and puffing at the first line out. For any of us that reffed at Glendale. And then like stuff with the travel too for us. Like, I mean, we all know it's a big country. Like we fly somewhere and I don't know what it's like to get back to Boise, but sometimes getting to Austin isn't too easy. You got to take a couple of flights. I mean, I flew back Saturday and that was awful travel. So it just depends. Like, skins are great. We're big fans of like compression stuff, and I don't have Normatec, so I'm not one of those guys, but yeah.
I see that Jonathan commented in the text that a lot of the position clips were when the ball was kind of passed out wide. Can you talk a bit about positioning when it's like a crash ball or off of a pod? He said that it seems like you'd be in the way in some of those cases based on those clips.
Well, I mean, it's one of those like, so for example here, so if they ran a crash ball inside me, no issues. If they ran it right at me, that's sort of the point of getting to safety. So if they ran it right at me, they'd run at those defenders. If they didn't, if they broke through those defenders, then I'd either step left or right, and then we wouldn't have any kind of issue. Like standing out, a lot of times we sort of stand in this no man's land and then don't move. I think it's just more about like being being mobile and not planning your feet is probably for me the most important thing. And that's trial and error too. Like I said, I've been smoked a couple of times, so you learn the hard way. But it's just more about like if they run a crash ball inside, then no problem. I would just go. I would literally my movement would be just I'd pop in and out. So I'd go here and then I go out, and then the breakdown would happen right in front of me. And then if they ran straight at me, then again I'd step right or left. It just depends. Didn't do a good clip of that, but yeah.
And anything is on the table question wise. You can ask about his dating life, anything. So go for it.
Eric, would you
silence?
I'm sorry, I was unmuting myself. I have a question for you, which is more for, I guess, lower level games, because your high level videos, you don't see that, which is positioning when the team has a 9 that tends to go right back to where the play was at, if that makes sense. Like they get like midfield and then they just go back.
Yeah.
Right. And like, where would you want to position? Because like when you're doing the spin turnaround, right, where you go forward to the offsides and you come back, right, and then all of a sudden the 9 goes right back to where you're at. Do you want to spin and come back around? Like,
you probably just step behind him. Really, you could just step behind him. So I don't have a good clip of
yeah
of that, but yeah. So like, here's an example. Just so if we go here, so I'm standing parallel to him.
Your screen's not shared right now.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, what's here?
I'm not.
Mongo.
I'm not doing it.
I got you. Hold on. I've been showing this and then no one's looking at it. There we go. So so we got in this situation where he went back, then if he went to my, like, was passing into me into these players, I just step behind him. So I'd step left. It's just one of those, like, if you show up, I had this happen in a game. Let me just pull this up. Hold on.
Mongo, this is a good time to plug Kit again if you want to go for it.
Like and subscribe.
Always a good time to plug Kit. No, I am genuinely excited about it. But there are minimum orders, but that just means that, you know, whatever we're below on a given item, then we'll order extra of that, and those will be the things that are available in the web store. So
Okay, so here's our situation. We're gonna have a quick tap, and then I'm gonna be in that 45 jockey, like weak side jockey, whatever, and then he's gonna pick and go weak side, and well, didn't work out well for me. And yeah. So it's just my takeaway from this is if all I needed to do is step left. So I'm in good position. If he's going to the open side, no problem. And all my momentum's going that one direction too. So I'm sort of in his hip pocket. All I got to do is just step behind him. like a lot of times you don't want to be behind him if you're in that situation where he's doing like a clearance kick. He's going to throw to the 10 or whatever. I sort of panic and then I try to run to the defense rather than all I needed to do was just step left and let the pass come in front of me. And just end up standing behind him rather than what I try to do, which I got lucky and nothing bad happened. Yeah. Yeah, like the safest position is that jockey that right in their hip pocket is usually where you find you feel really comfortable, and it's just really easy. If you're ever uncomfortable or you ever find yourself getting bumped too much, just start to stand behind the 9. It's just very, very simple. And then again, you just sort of reading that play, and yeah. Cool.
Hey, Derek, huge thanks for joining us tonight. This has been a real treat. This is real special. So big round of applause. When is training starting back up for you for MLR, or are you constantly training? But like, when does it get back intense for you?
Kind of never ended. I don't know. The message was get fitter, so there's been a lot of running, and I've been dealing with some injuries related to that. So it just kind of, I don't know. It's one of those get fit, stay fit. I don't know. I've definitely in the past allowed, you allow yourself to get out of shape, and it's harder to get back into shape sometimes when you let yourself go too much. But hey, gotta relax.
At 40. Yeah.
Periodization is definitely something that we all need. Like it's been good to have a little bit of a break though from actually reffing in the fall. So I haven't really done too much. I just did 2 games the last 2 weekends, and that's been fun to kind of get away from getting on the pitch and just relax a little bit. So yeah, just training just kind of never ends. But it'll fire up. It's definitely, we're getting to the point where it's getting close to firing up again. Yeah. We'll probably get back together in January at some point. And yeah. Brett, how's the Bronco doing?
I was told to shoot for under 5. So how's that going for you?
We're all shooting for it. I don't know.
I think there's 2 people in this country that could do it.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's only 1.7 kilometers, man. It's not even, it's just barely.
I mean, when you think about it, it's a 5:15 on Broncos, a 7-minute mile. And that's, I don't know, that's not that bad, but I don't know.
The turns.
It's the turns. Yeah, stop, start. Yeah.
The acceleration.
Yeah, a lot of running. Our S&C guy last year told us the best way to get better at running is by running. So
is there a testing date on the books?
I have no idea.
If you hear anything, let me know.
So in
Pretty sure
case
January.
anybody doesn't know what they're talking about, so does the Bronco is the new gold standard fitness test by which we're measuring ref fitness. And basically it's you run 20 meters, turn around, 40 meters, turn around, 60 meters, turn around, and you do that 5 times. And it works out to be 1.7 kilometers. And then in order to have, be at this level of refereeing, you need to have this score. This doesn't matter so much if you're just doing, local grassroots rugby. I mean, we look at it, if you're not able to keep up with a game, this is really what matters. But as we start trying to get to higher levels, there are requirements on that fitness. So if that's something that you're aiming for, then it's something to keep in mind. Along those lines, I wanted to bring up, we are resurrecting the regional development groups. These have kind of been dead for a while. COVID really knocked it out of commission. But we're bringing it back, and our focus is going to be on how do we identify pathways for people. We're currently in the process of identifying what our criteria for different tiers of refereeing are going to be. But I'm hoping by the beginning of next season, we're going to have all that published. Everybody will have received those. Everybody will have a clear understanding of if you want to referee D1A, or you want to referee WPL, or if you want to be the next Derek Summers, here's the steps that we need to take in order to get you there. One of those is going to be getting your 5-minute Bronco. Hopefully it's not 5 minutes. That's crazy.
I mean, just complete it. Honestly, it's just one of those. Same with the beep, same with the yo-yo, and I was never really that good at any of that, but it's just one of those, you have to run it, and the more you run it, the better you get at it, and don't let it stress you out too much. It's not always like pass or fail. I think it's just one of those, see where you're at, and then they want to see if you can improve. So you run it 1 year, and then next year, do you improve, or does your number go down? Does your number go up? What happened? Are you dealing with some injuries or whatever? And then, I don't know, my advice, if you want to get to any kind of level refereeing, just ref as much as possible. You don't, for the longest time, I could probably count on one hand how many assignments I turned down. It's just, you just got to ref. We used to have when we used to all get together, Paul Bretz gave us a presentation. He talked about a book called Outliers, and they talk about 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours of experience on the pitch, and it's just, you just got to do it. I don't know. There's not too many things you get better at by not doing it. So it's just, you just got to get out there and ref again, ref as much as you can. Don't get too caught up in reviews and stats and everything like that, and just go out and do it. And yeah.
And in order to do that, we need you to fill out your availability, which, you don't have to worry about for a month or two, but it's coming up. We'll have games starting again. The end of January is when friendlies will start up, and then we'll have season play in February. So it's not that far away. Once again, Derek, thanks a ton. I don't know where the recording of this is saving, but I will figure it out and send it to you. Would it be possible for you to send us the slide deck that you had?
The PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could send you that. No
problem. Great.
You don't need to publish this or anything. It's all right.
I always
Derek,
feel
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Derek, if you're still there.
Yeah.
So the breakdown of activities that, you had both teams doing, whatever it was penalty wise, and what software is that? And do you have like a format for that that you could also send?
Well, that was just an Excel document, honestly.
That's just Excel. Okay.
I used to just track it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not a specific software or anything.
Yeah, this was I just put these on Excel, and this just kind of, for me, was always like how I would track an infringement flow. So
yep. Okay.
Kind of, we look at trends and stuff like that. I mean, this all comes up in Advantage too, in a way, but this is how I used to just track my games and how I was like, managing penalties and infringements. So
sure.
Yeah,
it's just an Excel document.
Yeah, what Derek mentioned Advantage, which is a tool that has been used for a couple of years now. That's actually available to everybody, and basically it's a video review system where you go in, upload the video to the game, and then you go through and code it. So you go through and you code every penalty, scrum, everything like that. So you get a list of statistics. It's a great way to collaborate with a coach who can go in and go through the playlist, and you guys can kind of go back and forth through it. So Kevin, if you're looking, for like a review software, definitely get in touch, and we can get you on Advantage.
Okay. Easy enough.
Yeah. And thanks. Everybody in the society, I mean, you should get an Advantage account. Even if, you get maybe one game a year filmed, it's worth it to upload it in there, go through, code it, break it down. It's a really cool analysis software.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting. Once again, big thanks to Derek. Brett, thanks for setting us up. And thanks everybody for joining. See you next month.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Good evening.